Welcome to Campfire Conversations. In this episode, I'm sitting down with Bryan Ward, host of the Dad Up podcast, which regularly appears on lists of best podcasts for dads. Bryan's been featured on CNN, and Dad Up remains one of my personal favorites in the fatherhood space. Bryan's been married, by his own description, for a long time. He and his wife have two grown sons, and he coached both of them through childhood to high school. He even turned down an opportunity to be an assistant basketball coach on his son's college team, a decision we talk about in this conversation. Bryan also served in the Marines, an experience that clearly shaped the way he approaches discipline, leadership, and fatherhood. We talk about the complexity of being both coach and dad, his and his wife's very different perspectives on empty nesting, and the backstory behind his appearance on CNN. We even talk about a moment where his son didn't take his advice and it turned out to be right. So let's get into it. All right. Bryan, thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, brother. I appreciate it, man. Nice to see you again.
Campfire Gentleman is built on 5 core principles, and the first one is family. So let's just start there, and you can talk a little bit about your family.
Yeah. Well, I've been married for a long time. Been together 30 years. Been married for 28 of those years, and we have 2 boys, both grown now. They are 27 and 24, and we live in sunny Southern California.
So awesome. I know that you were a coach and you coached your sons. And they were pretty young, right, when you started coaching them?
Yeah, my boys were 4 years old when I started coaching them, and started off with Little League. It's funny, I remember to this day taking my older son to the Little League table that was outside of a grocery store because he wanted to play, and I was going to sign him up. Now, again, I've played sports. At that point, I had never coached anything, but we walk up to the table, sign him up, and the guy that's at the table says, "Hey, do you want to coach?" And I said, "No, I'm just signing him up to play." And he said, "Well, why don't you coach? We need coaches." And I said, "Dude, I've never coached before. I don't know the first thing about coaching." Like back then, there wasn't a whole lot of research you could do on how to coach and all that stuff. Now it's all over the internet. But he said, he looked me dead in the eye and he goes, "Sir, they're 4. They're going to be picking the grass. You need to teach them how to swing a bat, throw a ball, and run the bases. You don't need to teach them anything else, just the basics." And I said, "All right, well, maybe I can be the assistant coach then. Maybe I could do something like that." And so I signed up to be an assistant coach. And about a week before we were supposed to start practices or have a parent meeting, the head coach backed out. He had something come up. He couldn't do it. And he asked me if I would step up and head coach. I was scared to death, Clay. My very first parent meeting that I had to present or do or hold, my very first parent meeting, and then the first practice, I was scared to death. And that was how the ball got rolling. They played all the way up through high school, whether it was baseball or basketball, and I coached 95% of the teams that they were on. I was the head coach.
So they're grown now.
Yeah. My younger son actually had the opportunity to play college basketball. And it's funny, when he was playing college basketball, the head coach of that team needed an assistant coach. And because he knew my experience in coaching basketball and how long I've coached, now the head coach was younger than me, so he knew that I had more experience than he did. I was talking to him after one of the games, and he said, "Hey, I need an assistant coach. You have any interest?" And I said, "No, I'm done. My boys are grown now." I said, "My younger son his name's Brett." I said, "Brett would not want me coaching on his college team." And he's like, "Well," he goes, "All right, I understand. I get it." And so, no, once they got out of high school, I was done. I coached at the high school level for a couple years after that, but my boys weren't on the team. I did it for about 2 more years, and then I decided to hang up the whistle. And I've enjoyed being retired from coaching.
How difficult was that to be a dad at home and coach, for sports?
Well, it's interesting when my boys were growing up, they were little. Tried to make sure that they understood that when we were in the car on the way to practice or on the way to a game, I was dad. But I made sure at a very young age that when we stepped onto the court or onto the field, that I was referred to as coach. I was not to be referred to as dad because I didn't want to, the perception of other kids to see favoritism by this one boy calling the coach their dad. And that carried on through, like I said, through high school. Even at the high school level, when my boys were playing, it was coach. I was coach. I wasn't dad, but they never called me dad. Uh, if I had to sit them down for some reason, or I'd pull them out of the game, give them a break, sit them on the bench, uh, it was always yes, coach. It was never a problem. I do see it, and I have seen it happen in other teams that we either played against or whatnot. But it was just something that I instilled at them at a very, very young age, that when we're on the court or we're on the field, I am not your dad. I am your coach, and you need to refer me as coach.
My mom was a high school teacher, and I had her for one class the whole time I was there, and it was pretty delicate, to. I'm sure I called her mom plenty of times, I'm sure, and a lot of times I was like, I don't really don't know what to call her here. So, the same deal. She's worried about favoritism. I had friends in the class with me, and they'd be like, "Can we come over and study?" And I'd be like, I probably need to come over to your house and study. I don't know that you can be here studying the class I'm in with you with our teacher. So yeah,
Yeah, it's funny. My wife was a school teacher for many, many years, almost 20 years. Some of the kids and she was a teacher at my boys. They went to elementary Christian school and junior high, and she was a teacher at that school. And so my boys who had friends, my boys ended up being in my wife's class at points, and they had friends, and they would come over. And my wife always said, it's so weird having their friends here, but that are my students as well.
right. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm sure it was awkward. So looking back now that your kids are older, like I'm thinking, like my kids teach me stuff all the time, and they're 10 and 12. So looking back, like, are there some lessons you remember that your kids inadvertently taught you?
Inadvertently taught me patience is a big one. That's something that we forget as parents. When our kids are growing up, we have to have patience. And so I learned that from just being a dad. When my boys are growing up, just being a dad, I learned patience. And one of the biggest things that I think parents struggle with today is, when it comes to their kids, is really listening to them. Not just hearing them, but really listening to them, because you can hear a lot through their tone, through not only the words they're saying, their tone, but their body language, their facial gestures. You can hear a lot in just what they're saying if you really listen to your kids. So listening was a skill that I had to become very good at with my boys, and I still practice that today.
So one thing I think about is like my kids have taught me like to be more brave, actually, because they're just at that age they're not afraid of anything yet. And so they don't worry about what people think about something, or if they try something and they mess up, they don't think about any of that. They just sort of go at it and they think I can do this. And so there's a lot of times where I think, man, I wish I need to be that brave about simple stuff that, you overthink.
Yeah, yeah. Braves and confidence is certainly something that my boys had to develop just from playing sports, is having the confidence to try out for teams, things like that. But yeah, yeah, I would say listening's the big one, and patience is something that parents need to really learn to control.
And now that your kids are grown and you're empty nester, a lot of the readers of Campfire Gentlemen are sort of, if they aren't there yet, they're very close to transitioning kind of that. And so I'm wondering, how does sort of that stage look different?
Well, I've become more of, I would say, an advisor from the transitioning of being the parent and, the old adage, it's my way or the highway, kind of like keeping them in line, to when they became adults, I became an advisor. So now my role as a parent is not only practicing my listening skills, but giving them my advice on different things that are going on in their lives that I have experienced, being, you know, a lot older than them. I have experienced. They would come and ask me my advice. Hey, Dad, what do you think about this? This is what I'm thinking about doing. Do you think this is a good idea? What's your opinion? And I give them my opinion. I give them my advice. Here's what I think. Here's what I think you should do. This would be the best option for you. But what I've learned from them transitioning to adulthood, what I've learned is they're going to make their own decisions. They have to make their own decisions. And so they can take my advice and run with it, or they can kind of go their own way and do their own thing and not follow my advice. But what I've taught them is, you can take my advice and follow it, or you can go a different route, but you have to be ready for whatever comes next. So you have to, if there's consequences, you got to be ready for that. If it doesn't work out, you've got to have this option available. Yeah, what I've learned from them just transitioning from the teenage years into adulthood is, I'm their advisor now, and they can call me and ask me for advice, but I know that I understand as a parent that they don't have to listen to my advice. They don't have to take it. They don't have to follow it. And it's been a it's been an interesting transition for me, not only for me, but for my wife as well. It's been an interesting transition for both of us to kind of switch that role from parent guiding them to just being an advisor.
Can you think of a situation where you gave them advice and they did something different and you look back and thought, oh, they were right?
Well, man, that's a good one. Shoot. Well, I can say that my older son, when he got to a point, was, so for my boys, when they were going through high school and then into college, I wanted to be able to give them a car that they could drive. And so what I did is, through high school and college, I leased them Hondas. That's the brand that we used, Hondas, that would be their car for high school and college. And when they got out of college, the responsibility of the vehicle was on them. So I was no longer involved. I didn't make the payments, none of that stuff. So they had to take the responsibility. Whatever car they wanted to get, that was on them, but they had to take that responsibility on. And my son, my older son, who had saved up a good chunk of money in through college, working, and at the time, he was part of the time he was living at home. He was saving up his money. Um, it was time for him to trade in that lease and get something different, because he'd graduated college, he was finishing up the lease, and he needed to get something different. And he wanted to buy a car. And I said, well, maybe you should look at possibly leasing. The payments are a little easier for you, a little bit more affordable. And he said, no, he wanted to get a Tesla. And he said, no, I'm going to pay cash for it. I have the money. I want to pay cash for it. And I said, well, maybe you should keep that money for possibly future, maybe a down payment on a house, something like that. He's like, nope, I'll be fine. I want to make the purchase. I don't want to have any of the issues with leasing and all that kind of stuff. And what I've realized, he's had the car now for a few years. What I've realized is, he paid for a car cash, because he didn't want a payment. He didn't want a
Hmm.
car payment. And he's been able to put that money away that he would have been spending on a car payment. He's been able to put that money away, and he's been investing it. And now he has more money than he did when he had that lump sum that he was able to buy that car, just simply from paying the car cash, where he didn't want the responsibility of a payment. He goes, I don't want that payment. I don't need it. And so I'm like, he made the right decision. If I were in his shoes at his age, I probably would have leased another vehicle just so I could have a smaller car payment, and not worry so much about it, this hefty car payment. So yeah, he made the better choice, and it was something that I would have done differently, but he followed his own path, and it worked out well for him.
That's cool. We always think about that from the opposite side, I think, of, of like the parent giving advice and it not working out. And sometimes the kids are right.
Yeah, exactly.
So, how has the relationship with your wife changed through the kids leaving the house and all that?
Well, our relationship is much different now because we have a lot more freedom. Obviously, when our boys were teenagers and stuff, they could be on their own and all that. But it's kind of it's kind of weird because we live in this big house and the house is completely empty. It's just the two of us. But we have the freedom to go and do things now that we don't necessarily have to, tell them where we're going or what we're doing or when we'll be home, all those sorts of things because they're not here. And so the relationship has changed in a way that we've been able to reconnect. Whereas when parents have kids that are, growing up, parents tend to conquer and divide, right? If you got multiple kids, got one parent taking care of one parent taking care of the other kid, one doing their thing. But as our kids have grown and gone out of the house, my wife and I have been able to reconnect, come back together as a couple, and really start to appreciate each other again. That we missed all those years because we were busy taking care of the family. We missed all those years together doing things, doing our own thing. And now it's our chance to just kind of reconnect and appreciate each other and appreciate the success that we've had in that raising our boys are now grown and grown men and doing their own thing. So yeah, it has changed a lot. It's allowed us, like I said, to reconnect and really grow our relationship again.
Did you have like a conversation about that, or did you sit down with your wife and be like, now that the kids are out of the house, we have this freedom and let's figure out what we're going to do with it, or it's just something that naturally happened?
It's funny. I was very much looking forward to an empty nester. If my wife were sitting here right now, she would say, don't get me wrong, she appreciates the relationship that we have and she appreciates the time that we have, but she would say her heart would be full if her boys were here in the house because we just had Thanksgiving and both my boys came home. My younger son and his fiance came over. My older son and his girlfriend came in from out of town. And so we had all six of us were here at the house. And my wife it was like she was in heaven. She was content. Her family was whole again. So the conversations have been that there are times when it's quiet in the house and it's just the two of us and we're sitting down watching TV or whatnot. We have the dog, but we're sitting down watching TV and she almost gets sad that it's just the two of us because she misses the boys being around. But yeah, so that's how the conversations have gone. It's not so much of, oh man, we have all this like that. That's me. That's me, Clay. I'm like, I can't wait to be an empty nester. I can't wait till the boys are out of the house. I did what I was supposed to do as a dad, raised them. I'm there. I was there for them. I'm still there for them, but from a distance is great. That's how the conversation went for me. For her, it's, I wish they were home. I'm content when they're home. That's how our conversations go with that.
So did you have to sort of think about purpose in a different way once the boys were out of the house?
My purpose now is to continue to make my wife happy, and my purpose now is to appreciate what I could say us, but I'm going to say me for right now. Appreciate what I've done as a father in raising my boys and getting them to the level that they're at now, where they're thriving and they're growing and doing their own thing. So my purpose now is to really enjoy, I guess, the fruits of my labor, right? Really enjoy what I've accomplished, not only as a husband, but as a dad to two awesome young men.
And I know you've talked a lot about how your faith is, how important that is in your life and your family. Like, how does that, what kind of purpose do you derive from that?
Yeah. Faith has always been a big part of our lives. Like I said, my boys went to private school, so they've always had a faith-based education as they grew up. My boys continue to practice in their faith. We're Christian, and for us, my purpose going forward is not only to instill in them their relationship with our Heavenly Father and continue to do that for them, but also to continue to model it. Because even though my boys are grown and out of the house, my wife and I still go to church every Sunday. We still, every morning, I drop her off at work, and before she gets out of the car, we always say a prayer together. So my purpose now is to just, like it is with my wife, my purpose now is to just really, really reconnect with my Heavenly Father and show or model that for my boys, even though it's from a distance, to model that for them as well.
It's awesome. Um, and so let's talk about Dad Up. Like how does that fit into the purpose?
Yeah, the purpose behind Dad Up was really to help other men strive to be better. And so my purpose for it wasn't for me to grow. I felt what I was doing as a dad was uh, great. My purpose has never really changed, and I don't think it will change, because I think that dads who listen or watch the show can still learn from it, can still grow from it. And so the purpose with the show is simply that, Clay. It's just to help men be better, not only as fathers, but as family men, as husbands, as providers, as protectors. And so the purpose of the show is not going to change. That's something that is always going to remain the same. And my show has, I mean, I have guests, all different kinds of guests on constantly, and the purpose is always going to be the same. It's really just to help you as a dad not only be a better father to your children, but also to be a better provider, to be a better family man, and to be better as an individual for yourself.
I hadn't planned on asking this, but it just popped in my head as you were talking. Like logistically, how did the CNN thing work? Like, did they call you? Did you like email them? What is?
Yeah, no, it's interesting because as you start to evolve when you're doing something like a podcast and growing your social media, like my social media has grown and all that kind of stuff, I would get from time to time messages or emails that were kind of, I'd be skeptical of. And it was an email that came across to me from CNN asking if I was interested in being interviewed for a Father's Day special that they were doing. And I thought it was odd because my show at that time, had only been out for, I think it'd been out for less than a year at the time. And I thought it was spam. I thought it was one of these, weirdos that was like trying to get me to click on something, all that kind of stuff. So I thought, you know what the heck? So I replied back, and kind of thinking it was spam. I replied back and said, yeah, sure, I'm interested. And then the next thing I know, one of the producers of the show was reaching out to me to set it up. And that's kind of how I got started. I'm like, wow, this is legit. Okay. Now I'm a little nervous, but that's how it was. It was a Father's Day special many years ago. And the guy that interviewed me, his name is Mike. I'll leave his last name out, but his name is Mike, and he was the newscaster who was going to be interviewing me, and it was over a live feed, so it wasn't like in person. It was just like a Zoom call, and it was a great experience. It was a cool story. It aired for all day. They aired it all day on Father's Day. It was crazy, but they aired it all day on television. And to this day, over 6 years later, I still talk to Mike regularly. He and I have really gotten a chance to connect and build a friendship over the years. So it was cool. It was a very cool experience. So
How many phone calls and texts and emails did you get after that?
I got a few. I've had a few game shows reach out to me to be on. I had the one most recently. I don't know if anybody is familiar with this show or not, but I don't know if I'm supposed to say. But I had a show reach out to me recently about being on, and it's a show with a big prize money. It's held in the UK, and the casting director reached out to me about a month ago to possibly be on. And the show is so I had a phone call with her to go over things. And now the next step is one of the producers will reach out to me with his team in January because the taping is supposed to start in February. And I don't even know if I'm supposed to say the show. I better not. I better not. But yeah, I don't know for sure if I'll be on or not because the taping is it's 6 weeks long and it's in the UK. And yeah, it's gonna be yeah. So I haven't decided whether or not I'm gonna be on or not. It's just something that had come up, um, and we'll see. We'll see what happens. But
That's all from the exposure from CNN for the most part.
I think so. Probably. I've had publications reach out to me about articles which I've done, newspapers. I was on not a local. I was on a uh, Irish an Irish radio station had me on for them. Yeah, the show has been able to bring a lot of exposure, not only to the show but also to myself. And there are downsides to it. When I was on CNN, for example, they wanted pictures of my boys. They wanted pictures of the family that they showed in the interview. My younger son thought it was cool. My oldest son was like, "Are they serious? They're showing a picture of me on TV? Like, I really don't." So there are some things that come with it. My boys are not really. My younger son's bigger on social media than my older son. My oldest son has zero social media. He doesn't want any of it. He doesn't like it. He doesn't even like me taking, like, if I take pictures with him, for social media or whatever. If I take pictures, he always thought, "Don't post that. Please don't post that." He just wants it for me. So I respect it. I respect it. I don't post anything that my family tells me not to post. My wife will say it sometimes. My younger son doesn't care. My older son is definitely, don't post the pictures. So you don't see a whole lot of my older son on my social media. And if you do, it was from his approval.
So, with all the men you've talked to on Dad Up, like, is there like a common theme or something you see regularly that comes through about men and what they have in common and all these great dads and things like that?
Yeah, it's the biggest theme that I see that comes across from the guys I interview is all stemming around being present with our kids, and not just like I was saying earlier, not just hearing them, but really listening them, being around our kids as much as possible, and making one of the other things I'll say this, making time for our kids, scheduling that time with our kids is something that I've noticed a lot of successful men, because I've had a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of guys that are real busy. I've had people in show business on my show, and so they have these real hectic schedules, and they are very, very good about scheduling time with their family. And so that's one thing that I've learned through the years of not only parenting but doing the podcast is, if things aren't on your schedule, they're just going to get overlooked, or they're going to get pushed to the side, or bumped for something else. So, putting your family on your calendar, putting your family time on your schedule is something that most of the men that I talk to, are really, really good at.
Good. Yeah, that the newsletter that I'll send out tomorrow, I wrote this morning, and that was the main point of it was scheduling important things, including family and date nights and things like that. And because if you don't fill in that space with something important, life will fill it in with something less important, but something that feels more urgent.
Yep. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
So, is there something that you've noticed, something you can pinpoint that a lot of men and just dads in general are sort of missing now, or something they're overlooking that could improve their relationship with their wife and their children and things like that?
I'm going to go back to that listening because that we don't realize as parents how much that has an impact on our kids. If you're half listening to your kid when they're trying to tell you something, they're going to realize it, they're going to recognize it, and when they really need to talk to you about something really important, they're not going to come to you with it because they're going to think that, well, he's not really listening to me anyways. He's too busy on his phone, or he's too busy with work, or whatnot. So the listening component is something that is definitely something that I find dads missing, that they need to start to be aware of. Because, like I said, when they're younger, when kids are younger, they pick up on those cues, and as they start to hit those important teenage years, or late teen years, early adult years, they'll remember those times when dad was sort of half checked out. And I have some things I need to share with him, but he's not real. I already know how the conversation is going to go. He's not going to give me the eye contact. I know he's not going to be totally listening to me. So it doesn't make sense to even share this news with him anyways. So,
Well, I look back like when I was a kid, and the only thing I had to compete with was the television. But now parents are, and me included, we'll have the TV on, but looking at my phone, and my son will come try to talk to me, and so I mean, there's even more competing for your attention than there used to be.
no, it is a major issue that I see parents or dads uh, struggle with.
Yeah. I know you got kind of a hard out in a few minutes. So where is Dad Up the best spot for people to learn more about you and catch the podcast and all of that?
Yeah, Data Podcast. That's Dad Up is the name of the podcast. I don't think there are any data podcasts out there. There better not be. If there are, mine's the one with that red arrow in between the dad and the up. But Dad Up is the podcast. It's everywhere you can get your podcasts. I'm on YouTube as well as at Dad Up Podcast. My Instagram is Dad Up Podcast. I have LinkedIn's under my name, Facebook's under my name, although I do have a group Facebook page that's Dad Up Podcast. But yeah, everywhere that you listen to podcasts, you view podcasts, it's Dad Up Podcast. It's very easy.
And I know for a fact, if you Google best dad podcast, it'll show up on that list.
Yeah. 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 I mean, my show's been around for almost 6.5 years. And I will say this, in the new year, things are changing a bit with the podcast. Not saying I'm stepping back, but taking a different approach in the new year for the show. Right now, my show publishes every week, and in the new year, it probably won't be as much. I'm going to a strictly fee-based podcast. So guests that come on will pay a fee to be on the show. So I have guests now that do that. And so there's an avenue for me to go down that way. I have an editor and everything that I pay, and I have behind the scenes stuff. I mean, you run a podcast, there's behind the scene costs that you got to take care of. Uh, so the fee based podcast is the next step, and that is what's coming in January. Anybody out there that wants to be on the show, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. But it does cost money to be on the show, so that's the direction that the show is going.
That's cool. I look forward to hearing the new guests next year,
Yeah,
checking it out.
absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again, Bryan, for sitting down with me for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Appreciate what you're doing. Keep up the good work for the Campfire gentlemen out there. And I look forward to continuing to follow you and obviously continue with our friendship.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks. See you later.
Take care.